All right, we are on the air. Welcome to Ask Me About My Draculas. This is our fourth episode where we'll talk about being human. I'm Kel McDonald, and I do the webcomic Sorcery 101 at kelmcdonald.com, where you can find all of my other comics as well.
Hi, I'm Kara Leopard, and I work on the webcomic TS14, which you can find at ts14comic.tumblr.com.
And I'm Kate Ashwin, and I do a webcomic called Widdershins, which is at widdershinscomic.com.
And as I said earlier, we're talking about Being Human, which is a British show originally. We may get to the American version, we may not, but we're going to mostly focus on the British show. And should we start with Kara? Tell us what you have seen, because you have seen the pilot, which most people haven't.
Okay, so I've only seen the very first pilot, and I totally thought it was about a bisexual werewolf and a bisexual vampire who buy a flat, and there's a ghost that lives in it, and that's pretty much all I really remember about it.
Well, that does have the basic premise, except they're not bisexuals.
I kind of wish that was the description.
Yeah, I kind of wish they were. So the main cast is George the werewolf, Mitchell the vampire, and then they run into Annie the ghost, and they're just roommates, and that was kind of the elevator pitch for the show. And the pilot is this weird thing that's like sort of canon but sort of not. So they just kind of jump in to after the pilot is done.
So basically forget the pilot, mostly.
Yeah, well, they have forget the pilot, which is weird.
Like, what do they ignore from it?
Well, first of all, they replace like half the cast, so only the werewolf stays, so George is the same. They recast the vampire as Aiden something, who is now more famously known as Keeley in the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, he's the cute dwarf.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I sent
I
a message to a friend once when she was talking about how hot he was in Hobbit, and was like, if you have a moment to talk about hot dwarves, I will let you know that this hot dwarf is
also a hot Dracula.
He is also a hot Dracula, and he takes off his shirt more and human. And she was like, yes, tell me more. So what makes Being Human stand out, in my opinion, is that they were trying to make all the supernatural creatures be sort of a metaphor for different types of problems you would encounter in your roommate. So the vampire is supposed to be a drug addict, and the werewolf is supposed to have repressed anger issues.
Oh my gosh, it's actually kind of brilliant.
And then the ghost is, I think, someone who has agoraphobia.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
And so it starts out with vampire guy has Herrick, who's the head vampire, who's also a policeman, who is trying to get him back on the drugs, or the blood, back on the blood.
Because he's supposed to have gone cold turkey, he's just not doing very well at it. As in, like, I think he breaks that in the very first scene.
Yes, he does.
To be honest.
The very first scene, and then he had turned her into a vampire. So they're all like, hey, you're not doing so well with this rehab thing, so you should just quit and come drink all the blood with us. And look, we even have this girl that you killed and then turned into a vampire, so you should just, stop all that nonsense of being good.
So why did he stop in the first place?
Because he didn't like killing people. He's just addicted to it.
I think it was partially because he met George as well. And George, who's the werewolf, was, you know, trying to be as human as possible.
Yeah.
Hence the name of the show. Ah. And see how it ties in. And
It's all
and
connected.
yes. Yeah, and they're basically facing it differently, but you know, each one seems to think they have it easier than the other because, you know, George only has to deal with it once a month, kind of thing. But,
Whereas Mitchell makes a big mopey deal about how he has to fight his addiction all the time.
yeah, it is
No
the
one
kind of
knows how hard that is.
it is kind of he does kind of have the standard like, oh, I'm a vampire, but I don't want to vampire kind of deal.
But
But
I never really bought his whole "it's like it's very hard for me" thing. It seemed very much like da 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 da. Well, now I've killed a bunch of people. My life is hard.
yeah.
Um,
No, honestly, for the first series, I think Annie is the best character.
Annie, I think, definitely has the most interesting plot
Oh
because
yeah.
they are trying to figure out the circumstances of how she died and what her past business is as a ghost.
Well, she doesn't even think it's a mystery at first. She's just sort of hanging around the house that they rented. They just find that there's a ghost there. And she's very upbeat and cheerful, and all she really does is make cups of tea that she can't actually drink. So
Yeah.
there
Wait,
are
does
these.
she know she's a ghost? I don't remember
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah,
Ghost.
yeah. We know she's a ghost.
She basically, as a ghost, she cannot change her clothes. She cannot eat or drink anything. So she's sort of stuck in like what's kind of her PJs.
Yeah, she's stuck in sort of pajamas and
Oh,
like a
wow.
comfy cardigan and slippers for like the entire show. And all she knows is that she fell down the stairs. And she's massively upset about it because, you know, she just
She
bought
was
a
like,
new
I
flat
just
and
got married and we're gonna have the perfect life
uh,
together.
they
And,
were they were about to get married.
yeah.
And she was like all hyped up for this, you know, this wedding to this perfect guy, Owen. Oh, he's so great. Oh, and he's gonna be so sad now that I'm gone. And she's, you know, super upset about it. And it sort of you start getting little hints about Owen, because he's their landlord, so he comes around a few times. And whenever Annie's there, he can't see her, and they're not really sure why.
It seems like her getting seen is tied to her confidence to go back to
Yeah,
the whole
it is, yeah.
mental
Oh.
problems related to supernatural creatures.
Yeah, so whenever he shows up, she kind of relapses. Um, and there's a bit where she's actually being threatened by somebody else, and she accidentally calls him Owen.
So you
Uh,
start to get maybe Owen is not this perfect husband that Annie thinks he is.
Oh, so she like forgot things when she died.
yeah,
More
yeah,
she's in denial.
yeah,
And then it turns out Owen pushed her down the stairs.
yeah. And she doesn't figure it out for quite a while, and she's quite desperately trying to sort of not figure it out. Like she sort of tries to haunt him as like a sort of friendly ghost type thing, where she's making him dinners and you know ironing his clothes and that. Um, but then she you know realizes after I think there's like a leaky pipe or something.
Yeah, there's a leaky pipe, and it turns out that has a thong that started a fight between the two of them,
Yeah.
which led to him pushing her down the stairs.
And that sort of triggers her figuring out like, oh my God, he actually murdered me. So then she figures her thing to do is to get him, basically. And
Well,
she's
first
not.
she tries to save her friend who is now dating Owen.
Oh yeah, but
That doesn't work so well because her friend's really dumb.
well
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
But then there's that sort of sad abuse
Yeah.
cycle thing where she's saying doesn't he ever get angry and you should just leave, but the friend doesn't get it. But yeah, she shows up and tries to haunt him, but she's not very good at it because of her confidence issues.
Yeah, and then like George's whole thing is he's trying to balance being a werewolf and being an adorable nerd. And um It starts with he meets the werewolf that bit him, who is kind of a homeless man. He's a homeless man that more or less has his shit together. And then there's the homeless man just decides to keep living with them until they have to, forcibly kick him out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then, because George is all, I was learning about being a werewolf, and that's why he should stay. And then, George starts to be more of a dick, like said homeless man werewolf, and
Yeah.
then there's, oh no, he's the werewolf that bit me, and
Yeah,
fuck
werewolf.
this guy.
There was a werewolf fight, wasn't there?
There was a werewolf fight.
It was important to have werewolf fights.
And, you do see George's butt in every episode.
Yeah, I think it is actually every episode.
Does he transform in every episode?
He does.
Yeah, the way they have it in the first episode is really good because he usually transforms in this sort of basement in the hospital that they work in, but it's being renovated into offices or something. So Mitchell has to drive him out to the woods, and he's running around trying to find a safe place to change, but he keeps running into picnickers and couples making out and that. So
And then he decides to just transform in his own house, and basically Mitchell and Annie have to vacate the house for the whole evening.
yeah, they try
But
to
what's
clear
funny is that Mitchell takes his TV, with him, because it's assumed that Werewolf George will break the TV.
He just sat outside on the steps all night,
Yeah,
cradling
hugging
the
his
TV.
Oh, so they just sat outside the entire time.
Yeah, well, the werewolf breaks everything, and they put on some loud
Neighbors
music.
must think Mitchell's entirely odd because they can't see Annie, so they just saw Mitchell sitting outside all night holding his TV.
While his boyfriend was yelling and growling upstairs.
Yeah. And then, what was the third episode about? Was that the Gilbert one?
Yeah, that was the Gilbert one, which is when
The
Annie
Gilbert
finds
one is
out
to,
about...
make Annie, accept being a ghost more. She hangs out with another ghost who's from the 80s and is, mopey, sort of goth guy.
Yeah, he's a Morrissey fan, and he's stuck in that kind of era, and yeah.
So he has some pretty wonderful, 80s hair,
And they have Gilbert fun.
And Gilbert Fun is sitting around listening to sad music.
Yeah. And that's really the sort of Annie discovers about
What's going
how
on.
awful Owen was.
And meanwhile, George is also flirting with a pretty awesome nurse lady.
Oh, Nina is so good.
She's my favorite character because when George was being a dick and following the advice of the shitty homeless werewolf, he said a bunch of sexist prick things to her. And then she decided, both the werewolf and the vampire, their job that they can blow off to do supernatural things is they're basically janitors.
Oh, wow.
So at a hospital. And so the nurse basically, makes sure that he gets all the, having to clean up shit and vomit and gross stuff as sort of punishment for him being an asshole.
Good for her.
Yeah, she does not take shit, and she's brilliant.
Yeah.
I like Nina a lot.
Does she ever find out about all this stuff?
She does at the end of season 1, because there's all this, vampire stuff. The evil vampires are trying to lure Mitchell back in, and Mitchell's all like, no, this human thing's going great, and then he, befriends a neighborhood kid and, is like, isn't things swell, me and this kid hanging out? And then the kid finds what is basically vampire porn. It's a
vampire sent him
off another
video.
guy. And so the kid accidentally, takes the DVD and watches it, and then his mom finds him watching it and is like, "Where did you get this?" "I got it from neighbor man across the street."
Oh
And
no.
then the whole neighborhood thinks that they're both pedophiles.
They write
And
like pedos on their door, but spell it wrong.
yeah, graffiti is written on their door like that they're pedos. And then what else? George gets mad because pedos is spelt wrong.
That's
And
his main problem.
meanwhile, and so then like Mitchell goes back to working with the evil vampires, and
Yeah, who are like hanging out in a funeral home. It's
yeah,
worth
that's their
pointing
cover
out.
is a funeral home. And
They
Well, wait,
even
but when
point
people
out.
get there, they're already dead.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just their cover where they hang out, and even they comment on how like cliche it is.
Okay.
but Herrick is a good bad guy because he's kind of like dumpy a little bit, and he looks like a middle-aged police guy. So he's like a figure of authority that comes off as very charming and nice, and like is someone that you'd go to for help. And he's running this like mass murder ring.
And he wants basically like everyone to be a vampire,
Yeah,
apart from a couple of people who are food.
yeah.
That's his thing. He wants
He
just
wants
total vampire
vampires to rule the
supremacy.
world.
Ah, so he like wants the whole world to be vampires.
Yeah, except for people that are penned up and made cattle. So then Mitchell realizes that there are darker things going on, and he's not cool with that. And when he tries to leave, they're going to kill him. And then George and Annie have to save Mitchell from the evil vampires.
And that's just a brilliant scene.
It's a pretty amazingly hilarious scene.
Because they're just both quite incompetent.
Yeah.
Because when George isn't a werewolf, obviously he's just some guy. And Annie, I don't think she could even touch anyone at that. No, she could. She like threw a mug at a vampire or something.
Yeah. She threw a mug at him. And then George, when they rush in to save Mitchell, George says, "Who wants some of my chair?" That's his threat.
Yeah, he did pick up a chair and hit a vampire with it.
But they actually make it to him, like they don't die horribly or anything.
Yeah, they make it to him. They save him. There's only like 5 vampires there, so.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, then Mitchell basically arranges to have a fight with Herrick, like to the death.
Yeah, they're gonna have a showdown, and
And then, solve this once and for all kind of thing.
but then George, who is delivering the meeting fight place, lies to Herrick, and he actually tells Herrick to meet him in his like basement area where he transforms. So it turns out George is actually going to kill Herrick.
When he
Oh.
turns into a werewolf.
But Nina, his girlfriend, picks this completely inopportune time to talk about their relationship issues. So she actually sees him change in the she interrupts his big showdown fight, and they have to pull her out of the area. Right after she gets scratched, so now she's a werewolf too.
But George didn't realize.
Yeah.
Wait, so did he scratch her?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Accidentally, like, pushing her out the way when he
Oh.
was sort of half werewolf, half human.
Yeah.
And nobody realizes, apart from Nina, obviously, that she's been scratched. And, then she discovers that, all the werewolves and the vampires are real. And that's, a big thing for the next season.
And then that goes into season 2, where Mitchell's plot is mostly dealing.
Well, first George actually kills Herrick.
Well, yeah.
That did happen.
And then season 2 is all about sort of the power vacuum of now Herrick's not here, but Herrick was the one that covered up vampire deaths and like made sure like humans didn't find out about them. So
It's like anarchy, kind of.
So are people finding out about them now?
Well, there's just they're out of control, and then Mitchell has to take charge of everybody, and
And
then
George becomes an asshole for like 3 episodes or so.
yeah, George is all he doesn't take it well that he had to kill someone,
And Nina's being really distant and he doesn't realize why. And of course it
and
turns out
it's
it's
because
because
she's a werewolf too.
she's sort of trying to cover it up so that he doesn't feel awful for having turned her by accident.
And then meanwhile, Nina thinks like they're too deep in their supernatural bullshit that to realize right and wrong anymore. And so she's getting more and more distant from them until she eventually breaks up with George. And then, meanwhile, there's some creepy priest who's walking around. Oh, at the end of the last season,
Oh yeah, you get
George and Annie and Mitchell like threatened Owen and made him be all crazy.
Oh yeah, she eventually managed to
So
haunt
he
him
goes
properly.
to the police station and says that
There are
he
vampires.
killed his wife and now she's threatening to kill him and with her roommates who are a ghost and a werewolf and a vampire. Yeah, so he goes to the police station and says, I killed my wife and now her ghost is trying to kill me with her vampire and werewolf friend.
Oh my gosh.
So he gets a bit arrested.
So I think it was implied that he is in the loony bin.
Yeah, you never see him again, I don't think.
But that's how like the crazy priest man found them and knows to focus on them
Oh
because
yes, doesn't he start this anti-werewolf cult thing?
he has like this anti-supernatural thing going on for him in general.
Hmm.
And he keeps claiming to werewolves that he's going to cure them, and the way he's going to cure them is by putting them in a pressurized box that is supposed to prevent them from changing. Because it's in theory, it's like the gravitation of the moon or whatever is what's making them turn into a werewolf.
But really, is it just going to kill them?
Yeah, they're basically like fucking with gravity in this little containment center that's making these people's heads explode.
Oh, geez.
So you witness something like that happen to a werewolf that we don't know or care about. And then,
Just so that we don't want it to happen to the werewolf we do know and care about.
yeah, and then meanwhile, while Mitchell's trying to be the new boss of the vampires, he is flirting with this doctor lady who is very nice, but it turns out is working with Crazy Priest Man.
Oh.
She was supposed to get him to be to fuck up and then be killed. Or something like that.
I can't really remember this season very well because it wasn't that good. To
So
be
wait,
honest.
Mitchell, he still has to pretty much join the vampires that he didn't want to join.
Now he's taking over and he's trying to force them all to be in rehab.
It's not really working.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
really working. And then there's this whole like really old vampire shows up, and Mitchell, who complains about how he doesn't care about anything, and he doesn't have any new experiences left to have or whatever. And Mitchell talks him into basically joining AA because withdrawal is a thing that you haven't experienced before.
Oh, wow.
And then it works for a little bit, but then like evil priest and evil doctor lady who's flirting with Mitchell blow up the funeral home
With everybody inside?
with all the vampires inside.
And then they go to the train. That's the bit with the train, isn't it?
And then Mitchell flips out because he's all betrayed. And then he kills a shit ton of people on a train. And then he's like, oh, well, I guess I should help George now.
He had that sort of standard vampire plot where they do fall off the wagon and flip out and murder everyone and then feel really bad about it afterward. So it's kind of
No,
like,
he doesn't actually feel bad about it until the next season.
He like keeps a scrapbook about it as well.
Yeah,
It's not creepy at all.
No, well, the
Basically,
thing is that the others don't know that he did it at this point. They think it was some other vampires, and I think that his scrapbook was kind of a giveaway. I just, incriminating is all.
incriminating is the right word. And then, but so like, he goes on this big revenge rampage, and he ends up at the big facility where they blow up the werewolf's brains, by telling them that they'll be cured. And that's when he realizes that maybe he should stop murdering people and save his friend. Meanwhile, George's plotline is like he's having relationship problems with Nina because Nina isn't adjusting to being a werewolf very well. And then Nina meets like this doctor and priest guy who are all like, we can cure you with science. And she's like, I'm down for this. And meanwhile, George is not doing so great with his breakup with Nina. There is a beautiful thing where he tries to drug himself right before he changes, and so that way his werewolf won't do anything wrong because he's like had like 5 horse tranquilizers on the night of the full moon.
Does it work?
Well, basically the point is that the werewolf is inside him all the time and is mad that it has been cheated out of its rampage day. So he starts to kind of have Tourette's and rage issues even when he's a person.
Isn't that when he's like, that's the one where he's like dating a different girl who has a little kid and they go to like the parents' evening or something?
No, first it was, he's supposed to be teaching English as a second language class.
Oh, that was it.
Which makes his Tourette's hilarious because he's teaching all of these people fuck, shit. And then and that's where he meets the lady that he ends up dating. And then it all blows up in his face because he didn't like do daylight savings time.
Yeah, so he goes to a parents' evening for the...
Yeah, he goes to like a parent day and almost transforms there.
At a school.
Wait, but even if it's daylight savings, does that mess up the moon schedule?
No, it means
basically he read in the almanac the moon sets at such and such time, and he was like set an alarm and.
Because the clocks had changed. Yeah. But yeah, I think that one's a kind of a weak series because George is acting really weird and he's actually a really good character. Usually.
I like Mitchell's plotline in that season because I liked the older vampire.
But they do kind of forget to do anything with Annie.
Well, Annie's whole thing is that she kind of feels like she has no reason to be here anymore. Because her whole reason for not passing over was to get revenge on Owen, and then she got revenge on Owen, and now she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you sort of make your purpose in this show, a door appears, and you're supposed to go through the door. It's your door. It's for you, kind of thing. And Annie didn't go through her door because Mitchell was in trouble at the time, so she sort of held back on it and missed her chance.
Oh, so is she gonna become like a poltergeist or something?
She did actually, yeah. She got cool poltergeist powers for a while.
But that was just to fuck up Owen shit. So
And then,
it turns out the people on the other side of the door, the afterlife people that are vague and nondescript, so we're not confirming or denying any religious beliefs. They're mad that Annie didn't go through her door, so they're like sending other ghosts after her. And Annie at first tries to get a job at a bar, but then she can't, so she gets asked out on a date, and then it turns out dates are really awkward when you can't eat or drink anything.
Yeah.
Awkward when you can't, like, touch anybody or, like, make out with them. So, that goes horribly awry. And then the dude that asked her out, it turns out, had a near-death experience, so he's getting, like, messages from the vague, nondescript afterlife people to fuck with Annie's shit. And
yeah.
weird, creepy plot there.
But the other stuff comes in more in the next season, really, doesn't it?
And then she ends up having to go through a door because of creepy priest guy exorcises her.
Oh, yeah.
So then she gone?
I don't know if she comes back.
Well, she's gone for that. He's sort of right at the end of the season, and they cut it out with her, gone.
Yeah, and then that's supposed to be the big cliffhanger. What's gonna happen to Annie? Oh no!
And then in the next season they move to Wales, because why not?
Well, because Mitchell's murdered a shit ton of people. So
Yeah.
stay there.
So they finally figured that out.
Well, they all just moved to Wales, but then that's Mitchell's reasoning. I don't quite remember.
George's and Nina's, because Nina comes with.
Yeah, I think that they're just tagging along because they don't know what else to do. But yeah,
The third season has it has Tom in it, and that's the important part.
yes. So there are 2 new werewolves that are in Wales, near where they live, and they're once again hobos.
They've
No, they live in a trailer.
Hobos. Yeah.
They live in a trailer and they travel around, so they're never in the same place twice during a full moon. And they hunt vampires.
They hunt vampires.
Yeah.
They hunt vampires because vampires are dicks.
Didn't vampires kill his wife or something like that?
That's kind of what he tells the main cast, but you find out in a flashback that actually vampires grabbed him off the street and then put him in a ring with a knife and said, the full moon rises in 5 minutes and you're trapped with this werewolf, and if you don't kill him before he becomes a werewolf, it's going to totally murder you. And he was one of the few humans that managed to survive being put in a cage with a werewolf.
He did get turned into a werewolf.
And that's how he became a werewolf. So basically, he's a werewolf and his life sucks because vampires are jerks.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, I understand this.
And then he travels around with his son Tom, and it turns out that Tom is a baby who Tom is not actually his son. He ate Tom's parents, and then when he changed back into a person the next morning, he found this baby that was scratched but not eaten, and so then he just kept the baby.
So he's basically werewolf leftovers.
Yeah.
Wait, does the baby know this? Does he know?
Well, so
Yeah.
that's his son Tom, and so Tom is now 20, but that's like the backstory.
Yeah,
So
he
Tom-
doesn't know the guy.
thinks he was born a werewolf,
Yeah.
and that his mother, who was also a werewolf, was killed by vampires.
Oh no.
And this is important because Nina is now pregnant, so they're trying to get info out of Tom's dad as to, hey, did the pregnancy go okay? What's up with all this?
She's worried about like what happens if she, when she changes into a werewolf while she's
Yeah,
pregnant.
does it kill the baby when she changes into a werewolf? Is she going to like miscarry or something like that?
Is it going to be a really hairy baby?
Yeah. And then it turns out that actually they have no answers because Tom was not actually born a werewolf. He was just scratched as a itty bitty baby.
But he's a really great character because,
He's a
what
great
he is.
Yeah, he's great because he avoids like all the werewolf angst that all the other werewolves have, because he's just like he's always been a werewolf, and he's kind of adorable and socially awkward because all of his social interactions are with his dad in a trailer, and
And he's really innocent as well, like he doesn't really know much about anything. Like, go on.
so he doesn't know about anything like socially or about the big wide world, but he knows how to kill vampires really well, and he knows how to make a bomb.
It's like he can't really talk to a girl, but he can definitely make a bomb.
I guess there were priorities when it came to raising him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vampire hunting priorities. And, yeah, so he's just adorable. And that's kind of George and Nina's whole plot for the series.
Is gonna have a baby thing. Is it gonna be, actually not
So
terrifying?
wait, is there anything different with like the werewolf and vampire mythology in this series, or are they all like pretty basic like?
Well, the vampires don't like explode when they go out in the sun or anything.
Yeah. Like, Mitchell has to wear sunglasses when he goes outside. That's about it.
He doesn't sparkle.
No
Doesn't
sparkle.
show up on video.
Yeah. He's kind of
And-
greasy, if that counts as sparkling.
Really, they get greasy? That's kind of funny.
Yeah, he's kind of greasy because he seems that like he needs to shower more.
Yeah, no, he's
Then there was that one episode where he did take a shower and his hair was just a ball of frizz, so it's maybe he should stay greasy.
And the staking thing works, doesn't it? Like if you stake them, it does kill them. They don't like poof into dust like Buffy vampires, but they sort of melt away, and then there's just clothes and a stake because they only have a BBC budget.
Right.
Oh god, speaking of which, the werewolf looks awful.
I feel like the full done werewolf looks awful, but the transformation isn't bad.
Yeah, the transformation looks fine, but the full done werewolf is just the puppetiest puppet that ever puppeted.
So they use a puppet, not even like CG or anything?
Oh yeah, no, we don't.
A pretty good puppet for during the transformation, but a pretty crappy puppet for everything.
Yeah. The animatronics, because they have like basically the guy sort of going and then they have like his claws extending and that all looks pretty good, and then suddenly he's a big puppet, and that does not look good. And it's because the BBC only has so much money and they spend it all on Doctor Who.
Yep. They spent all their money on Doctor Who. But so meanwhile, Mitchell's plot is kind of, I'm trying to not get caught for this giant train murder that I committed. Meanwhile, Herrick gets brought back to life somehow.
I can't even remember
But he
how.
doesn't remember who he is. So they just lock him in the attic and don't know what to do with him.
I kind of wish they'd done that with the whole plot, to be honest.
Huh?
I kind of wish they'd just locked that whole plot in the attic. It wasn't a very good one.
And really, all he does to affect the plot is kind of like make some cops more suspicious of Mitchell.
Well, of course.
Yeah, like
Mitchell
some
with
cop
his-
lady comes to investigate Mitchell, and it was like, gee, Mitchell, you suddenly moved after this giant train murder.
Gee, Mitchell, what's with this scrapbook of evidence that
Well,
you
no,
have so carefully kept?
she's looking around and hasn't found anything, and then Herrick is like, hey, so I found this scrapbook of all this crazy murdering going on. So that might be good evidence for you, cop lady.
There is the one good episode where he gets like a fanboy.
Yeah, Mitchell has a vampire fanboy who's very excited that Mitchell killed all those people on the train.
And he's trying to like dress like him and
Oh, so it's
act
Mitchell
like him.
doesn't keep the scrapbook, it's his fanboy's scrapbook, and
Oh,
then
that's
Mitchell
it.
keeps
Yeah.
Oh, okay, less sociopathic that way.
Yeah,
Alright.
but you should just burn it. You find your this scrapbook of evidence, you burn it, you know? Don't
Yeah.
keep it. Even like he put it like under a floorboard or something.
Yeah,
Not good enough.
and so Herrick finds it and gives it to cop lady. And then the first episode, Mitchell goes into the afterlife and like saves Annie, but his guide in the afterlife is this lady who like flirts with him a shit ton, and then it turns out she was one of his train victims. And
Oh.
so she is trying to plot. This ghost is trying to plot against Mitchell.
Understandable.
She makes up a prophecy,
Yeah.
really, doesn't she? She gives him a prophecy that is actually entirely made up and just.
Yeah, she gives him a made-up prophecy to kind of drive him crazy.
And it's about how like a werewolf will kill him.
Yeah, so he's being all kinds of full of attitude toward George and Nina and to these new werewolves that he doesn't know. And then Annie and him kind of try to have a date because Annie has decided that her new purpose in life is to fix Mitchell. And there is a beautiful line where, I forget who it is, but someone gives her a hard time. It was probably Tom's dad. Gives her a hard time for dating a vampire. And she's like, well, my first boyfriend had sex with me when I was asleep. And then my second, like, boyfriend, then fiance, pushed me down the stairs and killed me. So a vampire's probably par for the course.
Oh, wow.
She kind of admits that she has bad taste in dudes. And then Mitchell dies because he has to go be a dwarf on The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Oh, how does he die?
He asked George to stake him because he's like, I give up. It's too hard to be in rehab. I quit. I'm done. Out.
Yeah. Well, there was like didn't some vampire show up saying like the old vampires are coming, the old ones are coming, or something
That
like
wasn't
that?
until next season, I thought.
No, I'm sure there was some big thing at the end where they're.
Oh, well, so
'Cause-
he kills Herrick and then he kills himself. Was a vampire. The vampire who covered up his train murders.
Oh yeah.
He killed the cop lady that was onto Mitchell.
Oh yeah.
Was all like, well, Mitchell, we're just going to take you to Brazil because you can't be trusted to not murder trains full of people. And then Mitchell decides that instead he is going to have George kill him.
He's like, no, I want to be a hobbit instead.
Be a dwarf, Kate. A dwarf.
Oh, sorry, a dwarf. Yes.
A dwarf that's in love with an elf.
Oh, wait, so, like, how does George react to all this? Because I kind of thought they were in love, but...
They have a very teary goodbye.
And then he gets himself written out the next series really quick.
Yeah, and then the next season is Nina died off screen in between seasons after having her baby.
Which was lame. Really lame.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't, if I saw the script for season 4 and I was the actress who played Nina, I wouldn't want to be in the show anymore. And then George is killed in the first episode, so now the only original cast member is Annie, who's left to take care of George and Nina's baby, who is not a werewolf.
And Tom comes back, who is basically a man-child.
Yeah, Tom comes back because his dad's dead and he doesn't know what else to do, so he's gonna help take care of um, George and Nina's baby, and then he gets a waiter job at a little diner thing and is pretty adorable.
Serious question though, has any show ever been like actually improved by a plot where someone has a baby? I mean, really, because it
I'm
just tends
trying to
to
think of it.
drag a show back really far, like Angel, I'm looking at you kind of thing.
I'm trying
I
to.
liked it when Phoebe had her babies and Friends.
Well, that's all right.
They promptly gave all those babies away.
Yeah. That was the only baby having on TV that I could actually remember being like, oh, that's hilarious and awful.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I can't think of any good baby situations, especially in an action show.
Yeah, it just kind of they think like, oh, wouldn't it be great if, and then they realize, oh, actually, this really drags everything back. Let's
Yeah,
just get rid of the baby. And then you have to have an awkward plot line where like the baby's suddenly grown up or
with
something
blow
like
up the
that.
baby,
Oh yeah, or blow up the baby like they did in
which
Game of
comes up in being human. They blow up
They
the baby.
do. Annie
Wait, they
blows
blow
up the
up the
baby.
baby?
At
Annie's
the end of the season.
It is in fact Annie's true purpose in life was to blow up a baby.
Okay, so the whole thing is, um,
What?
so the whole thing is, the old vampires show up, or are on their way, and they're all like, this baby's the chosen one, and they have some prophecy that's drawn on human skin to be extra gross. And yeah, so they're all like, this baby's the chosen one, and we need to do something about this chosen one baby. And so then Tom is like, I'm gonna help protect the baby from vampires because I'm good at fighting vampires. Um, and then you see in the future, the baby is grown up and dies. And she sees the prophecy and apparently can read it. So then she is using the afterlife and ghost doors to affect the past.
She like ghosts back to the past.
Yeah, somehow. And she tries to manipulate events to kill herself as a baby.
Instead of just saying a thing and
Yeah.
getting it over with.
So
Wait, the baby is doing this?
so the reason why
She's grown up.
she wants to kill her baby self is it turns out that the baby dying is going to be a device to kill all the old vampires. And
Oh yeah, so all the old vampires are trying their very best to protect the baby, isn't it?
but they're pretending that they want to kill the baby, so it's like a half-hearted attempt to kill the baby.
So they're basically,
Wow.
yeah.
So it turns out that the baby being alive means that the vampires will win. So all this
But
time,
it's a werewolf baby.
yeah. So all this time she's been protected her whole life, and then she finds out, oh wait, I was supposed to die as a baby. So that's why she's sending like shit to kill herself as a baby. Because it will stop the apocalyptic future where vampires rule.
Alright. So technically the baby kills itself.
Yes.
Yes.
What is even happening in this show? I don't...
Yeah.
That was
No,
kind
no.
of my thought. So that's Annie's plot line, is to deal with this baby chosen one stuff, and it's not a good plot.
No, it's not a good plot.
And meanwhile, but one of the people that the baby sends to the house is who she thinks of as vampire Hitler is this guy named Hal. And Hal is apparently in vampire rehab and is super duper uptight. And
He's got the Dracula OCD
yeah,
thing.
so he has basically OCD, and that's how he keeps his vampire jonesing in check.
Yeah, he like sets up a load of dominoes and doesn't push them over.
Yeah. And he like counts his steps and is a neat freak, and So he has been living with a ghost and a werewolf, and he
Oh, a different
knows,
ghost and a werewolf.
huh?
A different ghost and a
A
werewolf.
different ghost and werewolf. So it's
But that's a
basically
thing that
implied.
happens a lot.
Yeah, so it's
Apparently.
basically implied that his vampire rehab was very similar to Mitchell's, only it was more successful because he went through all of the 50s not killing anybody. Like, from the 50s to today, not killing anyone. But his werewolf is really old and is going to die soon, so he needs a new rehab plan. And they get a message from Ghost Baby Eve to, like, the future baby. She sends them a message that you should totally go to this house. And she thinks this is a good idea because in her head he's Vampire Hitler and has murdered everybody. So he'll kill a baby, but she doesn't know that he has not yet fallen off the rehab wagon.
Oh, so if he does, he becomes Vampire Hitler.
Yeah.
Yes. But he doesn't because now he has a new werewolf and a ghost to be his rehab buddies.
So really, this is all her fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But him and
Tom.
Tom kind of have their own separate plot line, which is them like shooting daggers and glaring at each other, and then they both are working as waiters at this shitty diner, and then they become friends.
They have just the best relationship. It is so well written.
And there is a beautiful episode where they have a bet on who can get a girl's phone number first, because Mr. Uptight OCD does not flirt with ladies at all, because that is too tempting to go to biting rather than sex.
But Tom has been taught.
And then
like,
Tom was raised in a trailer where the only other person he talked to was his father, so he does not know how to talk to ladies either.
But his dad had these really traditional values, so he taught him things like a woman is like a beautiful flower, and you cannot pluck the blooms from her, kind of
But they
thing.
were all like vague metaphors. So there's also a lovely scene later on where he asks, "How does sex work?"
Who does he ask?
He asks Hal and Annie.
Yeah. Don't they? He tries to flirt with the girl.
But
All I
they're
remember is him saying that she has stripy socks like
no.
a bee.
So there's this outrageous goth lady that comes to their diner, all the time, and is obnoxious. Like she tries to pay for her burger with a poem. Obnoxious.
Oh, wow.
So their bet is to get the number of the next girl who comes in, and she is the next girl who comes in. And Hal tries to quote like Byron and stuff at her because she's goth, so she probably likes those things, but she gives him attitude because he yelled at her earlier and didn't like her poem. And then Tom comes up to her and says, "Your socks remind me of bees, and I like bees, so will you go out with me?"
It doesn't
Does
work.
he get it? Okay.
It's no, the scene is so good. It's hard to
Yeah.
explain, but
It's pretty great. And then Hal eventually does get a girl, but then he gets tricked into drinking blood and eats her.
Aww.
And then she's a ghost and hangs out with them in the last episode. And that is because they're going to have Annie blow up the baby and all the old vampires with her. So they need a new ghost for the show.
So by the end of the season, basically, they've replaced every original character with a different ghost vampire, werewolf combo.
But so the whole bad guy for this season, I feel like, is a good metaphor for the season as a whole, because so there's the evil vampires who are doing their evil plotting, taking over the world plan, And then there's one vampire who's like, you know, maybe instead of this cliche take over the world plan, we should use like social media to show everyone that werewolves exist, and then vampires can come out into the public as saviors and protectors from these werewolves, and then humans will like us more because of good PR via social media.
He's a vampire who's really into Twitter, basically.
Yeah, so he comes up with a plan, like he records George and Tom transforming in the first episode and like murdering a whole bunch of vampires, but the people seeing the video don't know that they're vampires. So they're just watching these two guys turn into giant wolves and then eat a shit ton of people.
But he puts it on YouTube, and a lot of people just think it's fake, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
But so I feel like every time he's like, let's try this new, not cliche plan, and then everyone tells him, that's stupid, go sit in the corner. Continue with our cliche end of the world plot. And I feel like that's a good summation of this whole season, because they really want you to focus on this chosen one baby plot that's not very good.
Isn't the like the main sort of big evil vampire? It's Mark Gatiss, isn't it? Because he's
Yes,
everywhere.
it is.
It's,
Yeah, so Mycroft shows up and says some vaguely evil things, and then it's promptly blown up.
Wait, so Mark Gatiss.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's like he's in Game of Thrones, he's in Sherlock, he's in this, he's just everywhere.
He's in everything.
Wait, he's in Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Yeah, he runs the Bank.
A newer episode.
Oh. I mean, I don't watch it because it's too gory for me, but.
Yeah, it's pretty dang gory. He's a bank manager,
Yes,
basically.
he's had like one scene thus far, so.
Yeah. It kind of worked for sort of a Sherlock point of view, because it's like Mycroft is running the giant bank.
And then, so this vampire that likes Twitter is trying to trick and manipulate Tom into showing everybody that he's a werewolf. And, it's Hal catches on and saves Tom from murdering a shit ton of people accidentally.
And
So
they-
pretty much Tom's a really scary vampire.
No, Tom
Oh,
is
no,
the
Tom's
werewolf that
Oh.
how to make a bomb but doesn't know how to talk to ladies.
So,
yeah, Hal's a vampire.
okay, so Hal's a really, because, like, apparently he
Yeah.
can kill a lot of people, and,
Yeah, he's like a really old vampire who's been around forever.
okay.
But him and Tom have a great dynamic.
Yeah, they do.
And so, when they're coming up with the plan to stop the evil vampires, Tom is like, oh, well, all this stuff that I've been gathering all season and have been telling you is to build a pool in the backyard is actually to make a giant bomb.
Of course.
Because, and they're like, what, why? And he's like, my dad taught me 3 rules. Be really polite, be hardworking, and always have the materials to make a bomb. And, so he was building a bomb all season to fight vampires with.
Yeah. So they learn the truth about the baby, basically.
So then the evil vampires all have the baby, and then they have like newbie ghost, I forget her name. Alex, they have her like teleport Hal out of the building, and then Annie like blows everyone up.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I guess herself included?
Yeah. Well,
Well,
she
she
was a
goes through her
ghost,
door.
but she finds her door and goes through it, because, as I say, her main purpose in death was to blow up a baby.
And then the last season is you have Alex, Hal, and Tom. And
Fighting a Satan.
huh?
They fight a Satan.
Yeah, they fight Satan.
Wow. Alright.
And so this whole season, there is like werewolves and vampires fight each other and have a bunch of like tiny fights all the time and are just general dicks to one another. And there's no real reason for it until you find out that it's the devil is causing that because he gets power from them fighting.
Alright.
The
So
devil who is sat in a hotel in Wales, it's worth mentioning.
yeah, he was trapped inside the body of the village idiot, and then he's just been hanging out in Wales, kind of crippled since then. And the way he starts to gather more strength is Tom and Hal get a job at this hotel that he stays at, and the devil convinces the manager to have an Employee of the Month competition. And so you have Hal and Tom fighting for Employee of the Month, and that's enough conflict for the devil to get his supernatural ball rolling.
Yeah.
Alright.
When you put it, this was actually a good season. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it actually was.
But the whole time he is trying to get rid of the ghost girl because apparently the key to defeating the devil for all time is you need a ghost, a vampire, and a werewolf.
Oh, so has like somebody.
Hooray when there's just a vampire and a werewolf, but once he sees the ghost lady too, he's like, this is no good.
So he tries to get them to basically all break up.
Yeah. And then you have Tom is trying to better himself and be better at dealing with real world stuff. And which is why he's super into the idea of Employee of the Month. He wants to be Employee of the Month.
That's precious.
And unfortunately, their boss is a classist asshole lady who wants to bang Hal. So regardless of what Hal does, he always gets praised and Tom always gets yelled at.
Oh wow.
In fairness, Hal was pretty good looking.
Yeah.
When we were watching that series, well, the series before it, my mum was watched this show as well because she was really enjoying it. But she was like, "Oh, I don't know if I could keep watching it without Mitchell. I liked Mitchell so much. He was so cute." And then the new series started, and Hal was there, and she was like, "Okay, no, I can watch this. Yeah, no, I'm on board with this."
Handsome.
Yeah.
So is this like vampires are still like prettier than werewolves?
Oh, well, no, it's not all vampires.
Okay.
Because
In terms of
they
their
have, like I said, Herrick, the main bad guy, is a bit chunky.
But in terms of their main characters.
Yeah. The main vampire has to be sexy.
The requirement, I mean, it's expected.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Alex, the new ghost, is teaching Tom about important things like feminism and that girls are perfectly capable of taking care of themselves.
Good for her.
And she is also giving Hal a hard time because he killed her.
Mm.
No, he didn't kill her. The other vampire
He
killed
blames
her,
him.
but he drank her blood afterward.
So she's blaming him. Which I think actually makes a nice dynamic, like, because she's all kind of like, fuck you, you stupid vampire, you with your posh accent and attractiveness. That sums up their whole relationship.
Yep.
And then she makes blown up baby jokes right off the bat, and I feel like
She really does.
that's a great character moment where she, like, says a blown up baby joke, and then they just look at her like horrified, and she goes, "Too soon?" And they're like, "Yeah, too soon."
Wow.
She's great though.
She does sound amazing.
And then she is upset because she died in date clothes, so her two complaints about the clothes that she cannot change out of are that she looks like a girl and that she is wearing her uncomfortable, sexy underwear.
Oh, permanently forever?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's stuck in her like best bra, which is never the comfortable bra.
Oh, that sucks.
And meanwhile, since they don't know that the devil guy is their main antagonist, the guy that they kind of butt heads with publicly the most is a guy who is introduced in like the last 5 seconds of the season before, and you think he's gonna run like Men in Black, but British and the supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
So you think like it's gonna be whole government conspiracy plotline season, but in the first episode, his department's budget is cut.
Yep.
So the whole season is him trying to orchestrate supernatural disasters to prove that his department is necessary and that the government should not cut his budget.
Wow.
Yeah, this is sort of where the show kind of it does begin to redeem itself from that last season.
Yeah, because fourth season was rough.
Yeah.
Sounds hilarious right now.
Well, it's all very funny when there's blown up babies and things, but you know.
I still can't believe they blew up a baby. Like,
I know. Well, that was it kind of redeemed the season in a way because it was just like, wow, that was quite gutsy.
Yeah.
oh man.
I mean, I should probably state that I'm not generally in favor of exploded babies.
I'm also against exploded babies, but it made for a good ending. It ended with a bang.
You're a horrible person. It's okay.
So, then they eventually realize that they gotta fight the devil. And Hal falls off the wagon and becomes super evil again. So he's on his way to being Vampire Hitler again. Then, I like the end because it's really like, you don't know what happened. Like, you don't know if they actually won or not because
Yeah, because the devil's got mind powers.
the devil traps them in an illusion, and then they all escape that illusion, and then they defeat the devil. And it's like, well, did he just put them in a new illusion, or did they actually defeat the devil?
Yeah,
Oh, that's messed up.
yeah, they close out the season all sat basically on the sofa watching TV, like, wow, now everything's back to normal. Yeah, yeah, it
Everything's
is.
nice and happy, and then it's like, wait, maybe?
Oh my gosh.
Question
And then
mark. Or did the devil take over the world?
And that's the end of the show. And it was kind of a cool place to leave it. It is definitely a series with ups and downs.
And then there's the American remake, which is awful.
Uh,
So it's the American remake, like, do they try to do the exact same thing?
oh, they
The
can't.
American remake, the
really.
first season tries to do the exact same thing as the first British season, but the British season is 6 episodes long, and the American season is like 20 episodes long. So that is a lot of dumb filler in it. Like, they add a storyline where, like, the werewolf has a sister, and she's an alcoholic, and then they have, like, werewolves are planning to go to war with vampires, and
The trouble as well is that there's sort of an essential Britishness about the original show. Just stuff like Mitchell the vampire wearing marigolds and trying to do the washing up. And where they all sit around the TV excited to watch The Real Hustle and things like that. And that all gets lost on the American
also,
translation.
like, their ghost is kind of a jerk. So, like, Annie works because she's sweet and adorable, and then it makes, like, the dude that's beating up on her an instant villain because how can you be mean to Annie? She is
Mm.
the nicest person in the
She's so
world.
nice, and she makes tea for everyone, and she just wants to please everyone and everyone to be happy and get along.
Whereas the ghost in like the American version is they were like, well, that's not tough enough. We need her to be sassier, and so she just kind of stands around, makes snarky comments, poofs away with really bad special effects. Yeah, no, it's made by the Sci-Fi Channel, so they have a low budget,
Oh.
but they have decided to dump all that low budget into terrible CG, so
See,
nothing looks good.
yeah, Annie just vanishes, as in like they cut the thing and they perhaps I think they make like a slight sound and she's just not there anymore.
Yeah, whereas there's like a poof of smoke
Oh
when
dear.
um the new girl, I think her name is Sally, when she poofs away. And then there's like a whole plot line where she runs into an ex-boyfriend who killed himself, and then it's like, oh, he has to relive his suicide every day because he killed himself. And like, it's some weird, like, now she has to solve this problem of her suicidal ex-boyfriend, and
Does she have any conflict of her own then, like Annie did?
she was also killed by her fiance.
Ah.
But what happens is it turns into more her like trying to fight with her friend that's now dating her fiance. It turns into more of them like fighting each other, which is weird since he's
Mm.
the abusive asshole.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awful.
Yeah. Well, you know, girls love to fight other girls, so.
and then the vampire has a butt chin.
So that's a definite drawback.
I'm sorry, he has like Gaston's chin, and it's really distracting.
I love how that's the first thing you bring up about it. Yeah. So, you know, the ghost has this plot, and the werewolf has this plot, and the vampire has a butt chin.
Oh my god.
And then also it takes place in Boston, and as someone from Boston, I can tell you it is for sure as fuck not filmed in Boston.
Oh, sadness.
Because Boston does not have all of those French street signs that Montreal has.
But why didn't they just set it in Montreal if they're gonna film in Montreal?
Because then it's not in America.
All right.
And then also, a thing I liked about the UK being human is that Mitchell the vampire is from World War One, so he's not actually that old. He, but they decided that the vampire in the American one should be from the Revolutionary War, which is why everything's in Boston. That just made me shake my head, and it was dumb as fuck. Like, cause when he's like having conflict with Herrick, like in the UK version, it's like you can buy that he still has like hope, and you don't know who's right or wrong. Whereas, like when it's been going on for like centuries, and they're just repeating this cycle over and over again, it's like
Yeah.
that makes it seem like the bad guy's more right.
Yeah.
Also, Herrick in the US version is the devil from Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
He's still a cop, but he's too handsome.
I was gonna say he's too good looking.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want to watch it, but I probably shouldn't.
And then he has like apparently like the older vampires are all Amish. So his master, like, make more vampires and take over the world plan in the American version is so he can overthrow the Amish vampires.
The Amish vampires.
Yes.
The deadly Amish vampires. So,
Wow.
are these vampires that, like, won't drive in cars?
I don't know. Oh, and then, like, there's a whole plot where U.S. Nina, she has, like, an abusive boyfriend, and, like, George needs to confront him, and, like, the American werewolf is sufficiently adorable. So that's the only thing they got right.
But as adorable as George. I mean,
It's
really.
pretty hard. He's pretty adorable.
Oh, but oh,
He
George.
doesn't have big stupid ears, but
Yeah,
he's really good at making a sad puppy dog face.
but does he do the funny screech?
He does.
Oh my God, really?
He does scream like a little girl.
Because I thought George's ability to scream like a little girl was quite singular.
Not as good as George's girly scream, but
Yeah.
he can be sufficiently girly screamy. The guy who plays the werewolf in um, the U.S. version, he was the main kid in Jungle to Jungle. So if you want to see him when he's 12,
Wow.
What a resume that guy has.
he was also in Detroit Rock City, which is a pretty good movie.
I haven't thought about Jungle to Jungle in years.
I loved that movie when I was a kid.
Yeah. So
I
that
was,
that kid still has a career.
wow.
All right, good for him.
Yeah, you go Jungle to Jungle, kid.
I'm trying to think. He was also in the Star Wars movie called Fanboys.
Oh, who is he?
I haven't seen Fanboys, so I don't know what his character does in the movie. I just know that he was in it according to IMDb. Because I saw pictures of him and I was like, this dude looks really, really familiar. Where is he from? And those were the answers of movies I've seen. Jungle to Jungle and Detroit Rock City.
Fanboys is really funny if you like Star Wars but hate the new movies.
Yeah, I know. I was but definitely intrigued by the plot of Fanboys. Kate, if you are not familiar with it, it is a bunch of friends decide that they're going to road trip to the Skywalker Ranch so they can see Episode 1 at a big premiere party thing.
Oh no.
Yeah, so they're all excited, and it's
Yeah.
It's,
I remember the disappointment.
and but so then season 2 of the US version goes completely different direction because there are purebred werewolves, quote unquote, and these are people that were born werewolves and they want to be wolves all the time. So they hire US George, whose name is Josh, to try and find a cure for werewolfism via science. And they're going to use the cure to stay big monster wolves, whereas he gets the cure to stay a person.
So he's the scientist in the American one rather than like a janitor.
Well, you know how George was super smart in the UK
Yeah.
one and was just working as a porter?
Yeah, because you couldn't really utilize it because of the whole, giant wolf thing.
So it's basically the same deal with Josh. Is he graduated from MIT and is super duper smart, and then became a werewolf and decided to be a janitor.
Is he Jewish in the American one as well?
He is.
Ah, that's good.
Oh.
Get that over.
And his parents are psychologists who both think he's crazy.
Do they know about that he's a werewolf?
He told them, and then they're like, well, you should see a doctor, because clearly you're insane.
Oh my gosh.
I did kind of like how, and I presume it does it in the US one as well, but how they had the vampires in the UK one reacting to Star of David, because so usually it's a crucifix
Yeah.
in these things. It's pretty much
Basically, any
always a
religious
crucifix.
symbol hurts vampires in the UK version.
Oh, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, so they had like Herrick sing a Star of David and be like, ah, and yeah, it was just a change.
It's a nice change, yeah. But yeah, so Josh is once again, so he is also Jewish like George, and his sister's a drunk because apparently their family is overbearing psychoanalyst people. And that's how you respond to your family being overbearing psychologists. Is alcohol.
Okay.
Makes sense, I guess.
And then And then I think U.S. Nina's name is Nora, and
What, just to be different?
yeah, just to be different.
You couldn't have just used Nina as a name. That's too British. Americans can't possibly understand that I instead of an.
So Nora likes being a werewolf and tells Josh to stop trying to cure it. And then the purebred werewolves get mad and they have to fight. And then Bunchin Vampire goes and has all this stuff with his boot leader after he defeats Bishop, who's the U.S. Herrick. Yeah, so he goes and has all the sex, and then they get in trouble for having too much sex because apparently her mom told her don't have sex with him.
Sorry, what, the sex police pull up or something?
Because her mom was mad.
Okay.
And then Sally, the U.S. ghost, she gets addicted to possessing people. Because why not? And then she starts destroying other ghosts, and then she, like, starts to go crazy. And then her fiancé, like, killed himself in prison, and then his ghost wants to get revenge on her ghost. So they have to fight. And then she gets her body back, but she's a zombie now and has to eat things. And that doesn't last very long because her body is rotting if she doesn't eat things.
What does she have to eat?
She, like, eats a bird.
Gross.
Eat living things.
So wait, is the American version more convoluted than the British version?
Yes, yes. To the point where at the start of the last season, I stopped watching, like, partway through the second season, and then I was reading summaries of it, and I saw in the last season that the werewolf, Josh, became a backwards werewolf. Which means that he's a big monster wolf most of the time, and then he turns into a person during the full moon. So him and Nora have, like, that, like, what's it called, Lady Hawk story thing, where the guy's an animal during the day and she's a hawk or something.
Wow.
That sounds really
So wait, did he,
bad.
like, accidentally make the cure even though he didn't want to anymore, or?
He did some, like, meditation to help him get, like, a better control of his wolf, and then his wolf ate him in his brain. So.
Wow. Okay.
Wow, okay. And I thought George trying to change into a werewolf by looking at a picture of a moon was a bad plot point.
And then there's the whole story is they get him to change back from not being a reverse werewolf. But then that whole season he starts to turn into a wolf when he just gets mad. So it's like he has to fight to stay not a reverse werewolf. And then the house is evil. And apparently
Throw that in there. And then the house is evil.
to die in it. So the reason why Sally was killed by her fiance is the house was exacerbating his abusive tendencies to be, so that way she would die quicker. And
So
then
the house made him kill.
Yes.
Wow.
The house made me do it, yeah.
So the house, which feeds off murder times happening, wants the vampire to stay because he's murdering all the folks. Yeah, so the house wants the group to stay in the house because they have a higher murder time than most people.
Right.
Wow.
It's like Evil Doom House is what, like the final boss or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
End show.
Wow.
They move out of the house. End show.
Well, that's it. They just leave the house.
Yeah.
Well, this house is evil. Yes, it is.
Well,
Okay,
I think
let's go.
the vampire guy dies and the ghost passes on, and then the werewolves go join a werewolf pack. End show.
Yeah, that.
So that show's officially over.
Yep.
Wow. So wait, how many seasons are there of the British one?
5.
Five.
And then how many are there of the US one?
I think that also has 5.
Oh, okay.
But the US one is like 26 episodes per,
Yeah.
whereas the British one is 6, because that's what we do here.
Oh.
I do tend to prefer sort of the short season type thing because then you can actually get plot in there rather than filler.
Yeah.
And, especially for like the first season, all those episodes are pretty good.
And I like the second season. Like I like Mitchell's plot and I like Annie's plot because while Annie's plot is quieter, the point of it seems to be that Annie is indeed spinning her rails.
Mm.
And I like when she helps that dude that talks to dead people.
Oh yeah, the psychic.
Wait, what's about, like, when is there a psychic there?
Well, like, so when Annie doesn't know what to do with herself and is kind of just, like, dicking around, she goes to a theater and sees a guy performing he's one of those guys that's like, your dead relative is sending me a message and I can perceive it and you should know that blah, blah, blah. And those guys that are usually con men.
Yeah.
But this guy, he can actually talk to ghosts.
Oh.
And she sort of makes him her project because that's what she does.
Yeah, he kind of like hates everything, and so she tries to fix him because that's what Annie does. Try to fix depressed, angsty men.
Of course.
Oh, I did like Annie. She was a really good character.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Just the way she'd make all the cups of tea for everyone, even though they didn't want them, and there'd just be all these, like, dead cups of tea hanging around,
Yeah.
stone cold. Sometimes she'd dunk biscuits in them just because it's what she used to do.
and then what else? I
Oh,
really
there's Tom's
like.
werewolf girlfriend.
Huh?
Tom's werewolf girlfriend.
Yeah. Tom has an adorable episode in the 4th season. It is called Puppy Love, and it is a nerdy werewolf girl meets Tom, and they're basically adorable together.
Aww.
And that is the entire plot.
Yeah, she's in Game of Thrones as well. She's one of the people with Bran.
Yeah.
And she's really good in both shows.
Yeah, but so basically she shows up because she saw the video on YouTube, and then she tries to ask him, why did you put videos of yourself transforming on YouTube, and he said, what's YouTube?
Oh, so she's the one that helps him figure that out.
So then she used to be on the debate team, so she teaches him how to argue properly. So there's actually a point later in the series, from then on, he always has, like, note cards whenever he is trying to argue with someone. So he will be like, point, blah, 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 argument, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then he teaches her how to, like, stake vampires.
Oh, that's a fair trade.
Yeah.
And they're just generally adorable.
Oh, I know. I really like that character.
And then he finds out that he finds like a missing persons report about her, and he convinces her to go talk to her parents.
Because they're worried.
Tell them what's going on.
How does that go?
Well, we don't get to see that. She just leaves.
Aww.
And then they're like, we'll write each other. Now that you know what email and YouTube is. So yeah, they're just adorable.
Yeah. And this show is all on Netflix, I should probably point out.
Yeah.
US
Both
Netflix.
versions?
Yeah, both versions. I know the full thing of the British one is on there. I don't know if the full thing of the American one is on there.
The American one just ended, so if it is on there, they probably don't have the last season yet. But you don't want to
Okay.
watch the American version.
Yeah. I'll probably watch the British version first.
It is at the very least it's certainly shorter. Which makes it certainly easier to binge watch. It's on the American Netflix. It's not on the UK Netflix, which I find very upsetting.
What?
I know, it's our show. Give us the show.
I'm trying to think about if we've missed anything. There's a beautiful scene where Mitchell and George freak out because their favorite show has changed time slot.
It's The Real Hustle. They wanted to watch The Real Hustle. And they're really freaking out because of what's going on in their lives, but it manifests as this
Has them freaking
breakdown
out about the Real Hustle.
that they can't watch The Real Hustle, and they're like, Tuesday night, 11 o'clock, Real Hustle time. Everyone knows that. What's going on in the world? The world is going insane. How could they do this to us?
That's kind of precious.
And then I like,
There's lots of precious bits.
there's a beautiful moment also when they have Hal and Tom instead of Mitchell and George, where Hal and Tom are channel surfing and they come across the Real Hustle and they decide that it's dumb and they decide to watch the Antique Roadshow instead.
Yeah.
And
they
it's
also-
kind of to make the point that these are different characters and things will not be the same.
They do sit around watching the Antiques Roadshow, guessing the prices of the antiques.
Except Hal is not allowed to guess if it is a thing that he owned.
But would he know the current price for it?
Well, if he owns it, then...
He's the kind of guy that would, is the thing.
So it was basically, when they say that that's a rule, Hal responds with, that only happened once. But their bet to get the number of the goth girl, that ends beautifully because vampires attack the little diner, and then they have to get her to leave and to get her to like go along with them and stop asking dumb questions that will slow them down. Hal just kind of like does the vampire-y hiss thing at her and then says, I'm a vampire, he's a werewolf, shut up. And then she goes, oh my god, and starts to freak out because, you know, this is her, like, dream. And before she can ask Hal out because he is a vampire for that mere fact, Tom interrupts and asks for her number because he wants to win the bet. The bet is still going on.
Oh.
And then she ends up becoming a vampire and runs off with the dumpiest, grossest looking vampire in the show. And they go be ridiculous together.
This sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And kind of awful, but also amazing.
It's amazing except for the baby bits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that still throws me off. Like, I think I'll probably even watch it, and then it'll happen, and I'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah, I do really like any show where they suddenly introduce a baby plot partway through just plummets in quality immediately. And it's not the baby's fault. I mean, it's a very nice baby, but still, it's just no.
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything with a good baby.
Maybe babies are just bad actors.
Oh, wait, wasn't there a show all around a baby? It was like two guys and a baby or something.
Like, if it's based around a baby, you know.
Yeah.
It's
That's the
more
whole
so
point of the show. This is like a mid-season baby.
yeah, mid-show baby equals bad generally. I'm maybe just really bitter about Angel still. I don't know. Oh God, Connor, you were so awful.
We haven't gone over Angel yet. I don't think Kara's seen it.
I have not
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, there's a baby in Angel, and that's when everything gets terrible.
Angel is a show which has a season so bad they literally mind wipe the characters at the end of it.
Made them all forget that that happened.
Oh wow, are you serious?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. It makes up for it afterward,
But
kind of.
there's still a season and a half that was everyone was told to go forget about.
Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious.
All right, I think that we have fully discussed being human and all
Yeah.
being humanness, which is different. I should clarify. Being human is different from almost human. Almost human is about robots and therefore has no place on Ask Me About My Draculas.
It was also quite bad.
Yeah,
Almost good.
almost good.
Almost TV.
See, also, I watched like the first 3 episodes because I really like Carl Urban and I really like Michael Ealy, but I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah, they were good actors. It was a good premise. They did nothing with it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have bitcoins as their currency, and that's endlessly hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, so that's the end of the episode. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks for joining us, Kate.
Yeah, no problem.
Pop in 2 weeks from now where I believe we're going over True Blood. Hold on, I'll pull up my calendar. I have it written down.
Your Dracula calendar, Dracula
Yes.
planner.
I do have a calendar. Draculas are blue.
That's awesome.
You have a special color for Draculas.
Well, it's my general eye calendar, so you can see like conventions are red.
Yeah,
My due dates
Draculas are blue. I've learned a thing today.
are Draculas. Okay, so yeah, next episode is True Blood. And that's June 13th. We will explain the intricacies of the world of True Blood.
I'm excited to learn about it.
There's a lot of naked men in that too.
That's all I've seen of True Blood is somebody sent me a YouTube video of it was just like all the clips of guys making out.
Alright, I have a funny story that I can tell you after we end the show, and I'll save it for next episode for on air. Alright, well, thanks everyone for watching again. Bye.
Bye.